All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Ogdensburg City Council Debate 2021. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. We have all 8 candidates here this evening. We have the few in attendance who will be helping out set this up on camera. We have Brittany. Kathy is running the back end show, keeping track of the clock for everyone, and I'll explain all of that later. Joe, who organized it, is here as well, and I'm Dawn, your moderator. At this time, if everyone could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to begin the evening. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. At this time, we're going to start and have each candidate just introduce themselves so you know their exact names, and then we'll move into explaining the rules of how this evening will work.
Robert Eadie.
Dan Scamperly.
Esben Warden Jr.
Ronald Lesperance.
Richard Breen. Dennis Mahaffey.
Nicole Kennedy.
Michael Powers.
Thank you, everyone. A reminder, too, please speak right into those microphones when it's your time. This evening, we have 4 categories we'll be going through: ethical governance and social media use. The second category, sales tax, property tax, and assessments. The third is future community goals and economic growth. And the fourth is budget items and staffing levels. You'll note we're going in this exact order for question 1. Question 2 will move on to candidate 2, and so on and so forth. So we'll go all the way around. Everyone will start once, everyone will end once. People will wind up in the middle at various times through the evening. The questions are going to be drawn from these buckets beside me, and I will present them to the camera where Brittany is each time. So you will see they're in this book, and I have not opened it yet, but each one falls categorically within the 4 categories that were presented a little over a week ago on Facebook and online in various places, and were submitted by voters in the city of Ogdensburg. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. Kathy will present to them 30-second warning cards and 15-second warnings, at which time they will have to wrap up their remarks, because at the end of the 2 minutes, I will move on to the next candidate so we can keep this moving and in fairness for everyone to have the exact same opportunities. So at this time, remember too, I will read the question once and only once, because some of them I'm told can be lengthy depending on what's drawn from the buckets. So these are all provided to everyone: pens, notebooks to take notes. So if everyone is ready.
Ready.
All right, we shall begin. The first one, category number 1, is ethical governance and social media use. Ironic, the first question is question number 1. And that question goes as follows. What is your position on the city manager being held to a standard of professional conduct to include membership in an accredited program with disciplinary action taken if needed, as was used with previous managers? We'll begin this question with our candidate, Mr. Eadie.
I believe how that will work out is that everybody should be held accountable for their own social actions. And if they're on social media and they're putting it out there, it should be factual only. It shouldn't be your opinion. As long as it's our government purposes, it should only be factual purposes. As far as being held accountable for them, absolutely. If you're using out of term, out of class, out of point, you shouldn't be allowed to be able to do it at all. So that's where I stand on that. As far as the other parts of it, I'm learning more about it.
Any further?
No, ma'am.
All right, if we could move on to Mr. Scamperly, please.
So as I understand the question, should the city manager be held accountable as a standard in ethical regards and in regards to organizations like the ICMA? And I absolutely do. Obviously, I introduced a resolution recently because I feel that he needs to hold a professional standard for the city. I don't think city business, the majority of it, should be conducted on Facebook or social media, Twitter, whatever. I think city business should be conducted in City Hall, and that's the way it should be. And definitely held them to a standard and should be accountable for it. So, and I'm good.
All right, we'll move on to Mr. Warden, please.
I believe Facebook should be used, or social media should be used just to present information. Speaking to people in a manner of professionalism is how it should always be. People should be held accountable if speaking to people in a manner that is not honorable.
All right, Mr. Lesperance.
social media is part of everybody's lives these days. So a lot of us turn to it for a lot of different reasons. I believe that using it as a platform to put your opinions out there is okay, but you have to have a level where you stop at. As far as, opinions and things like that, everyone has their own. And there's a lot of bickering going back and forth when you do that. I don't always agree that certain topics should be discussed on social media, but I think it's a good way to reach out to other people that are voting, and get their take on what's going on in the city. I don't believe that that it should be used completely for going after each other. I just don't agree with that at all. Should the city manager be held accountable? I think he's responsible for a lot that happens. That everyone falls under his jurisdiction, I believe, in office, if I'm not mistaken. So yes, there should be professionalism, and there should be accountability for what you do and say on social media. I think it should be watched. It should be monitored by someone to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand. That's how I feel about it.
Okay, moving on to Mr. Breen.
Should the city manager be responsible for what he says? Yes, he should be, no matter how he says it. Like I personally said to him, he's an ex-military person. You don't speak the same language as he does. That's where we all, meaning the civilian people and everything else, because I'm a 20-year veteran, I understand how he approaches stuff. To me, he approaches stuff the same thing as an officer would be telling me to go do something. He doesn't expect you to give him 25 minutes worth of why I'm not going to go do it. So he has to, and I don't believe he's under the same impression, but he does have to be accountable for being rude to people. And I think a lot of the rudeness come because he changed a little bit the way we used to are familiar with doing business at City Hall. One is when people would come up and ask you questions, you was dialogue back and forth to each other. I think that needs to come back because I don't know what you're speaking from, and I wasn't there when everything happened, but I know for a fact there was rules put into place years ago that you couldn't come to City Hall and complain about the gentleman that was in front of my house that was supervising the job for tearing up the driveway. You couldn't come here to City Hall and say, so-and-so, he was rude to me, he was this to me. They did away with that. But the problem I have is we need to work on that. Communications to one another nicely is the way I think we need to go.
Okay, Mr. Mahaffey.
I'll keep it real simple. You should just stay off of Facebook. You get a City Ogdensburg page for informational and facts only. And yes, the city manager should be held responsible for what he says and does.
All right, Ms. Kennedy.
The city manager is the CEO of the city, and he should be held to the most professional standards. I do not believe we have that in City Hall currently. If the city manager wants to use social media, then I believe it should not be done from a personal page. If we are going to put out factual information, such as budgetary information or things that are going on in our city, it should come possibly from something maybe like the office of the city manager, not a personal Facebook page. And I also do not believe that our city manager is currently being held accountable for his social media use. And I think the city council as a whole, is that something that needs to be looked at and taken care of. Our citizens deserve better. They deserve to have confidence in City Hall. And I believe we lack that confidence in City Hall. And that confidence comes from the top down. So I think that's the most important thing we need to look at right now.
Mr. Powers.
Yeah, I concur with Councilor Kennedy here. Based off the fact, I mean, he's ultimately responsible for it. He's using his own opinions, and those facts can be debated. We've talked about opinions in the past, but ultimately, at the end of the day, there's checks and balances in government, and he is not an elected official. For one, the ICMA standards call for an apolitical position for any city manager, even though he's not part of that conference and probably never will be, but ultimately at the end of the day, he's held to a higher standard. And that standard comes whether it be in the military, whether it be in government, and whether it be in just personal ethics. And that's pretty much where it sits for me.
All right, that's question number one. Going to move on to number two. This topic is sales tax, property. The little slippery sucker right there. I apologize for that. Sales tax, property tax, and assessments. Thank you, Joe. The question for that is going to be question number 10. Do you think lowering taxes is what will keep our city going financially? On this question, we'll start with Mr. Scamperly.
I think I've always wanted to lower taxes. It's a difficult thing. About 59% of the property is off the tax rolls. When people don't pay their taxes, the city has to make the county whole and the school whole. And it's been incredibly difficult to make those payments to these entities. And it's one of our biggest challenges. I'm all for lowering taxes, but at what cost? So that's good.
Mr. Warden?
I feel property taxes should be kept as low as possible. Always look to the budget. Don't go so low that you can't cover your budget. You still need money in the bank. You don't want to scare people away from moving here, and you don't want to scare people to move away from here. You need businesses to want to come here, but you don't want to scare them away from taxes. So keep property taxes low.
Mr. Lesperance?
Everybody wants to pay lower taxes. It's a given. I think, as he alluded to, bringing businesses in will help that tax base. So to improve the city development, other things like that would definitely help. I don't agree with a few things that, like, for example, the church has houses donated to them, and when they're donated to them, they're immediately off the tax roll. So that hurts. Even a little, it hurts. I would like to see something be done about that if that's possible. I have nothing against the church. I'm a Christian man myself, but if we lower taxes, the money has to come from somewhere else. And where's it going to come from? The only thing I can think of is bringing more business in, not raising the taxes. I believe we're already at our limit, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you can't go much higher than what we're paying. And I know that it's gone down a little bit. And yes, everyone would love to see it go down more. I would love to see it go down more. And it'd be nice to have that happen. That's it.
Mr. Breen?
Yeah, I think lowering our property taxes is everybody's given when they even decide to run for city council. Everybody wants it lowered. I think we're paying too much money. Sales tax is a different story. Right now, the city's trying to collect their own sales tax. That's a feat in itself. Everybody that I have talked to asked me the same question. How are they going to do that when we make the school whole, when we make the county whole, if we don't have the money? We got involved into that where we owed them almost $900,000, and we finally got that paid off. So now school taxes, if we allow the county to take it, I see a problem with the county. Make them whole. Let them take care of it. But when they come in and do the legal side of taking somebody's property because of the city taxes, how are we going to do that? Exactly how is it going to work? I think before we started all this sales tax stuff, we really did need to figure out how, if we went that route, how are we going to get there? Like I'm saying is thinking is, if we don't want to count our own taxes, so how am I going to pay my county taxes? Am I going to get a bill from the county and a bill from the city for the same thing? Or there much money for them on my properties? If that's how it's going to work, let's start looking at it and let's start talking about it. Not arguing and fighting about it, even with the county. Stop arguing and fighting about it. This is what we do if we have to go this way. This is what we got to do if we go that way. I'm done.
Mr. Mahaffey?
I'd have to do a little more research on that, as I'm not an expert on sales tax or property taxes. I know I pay too much. I believe I do, and I believe the rest of us do. Definitely, we all want lower taxes, but can we sustain it to keep our city functionable?
Ms. Kennedy?
I think it all comes down to what do we want to pay versus what services as a city do we want to provide. And I know personally, I choose to live in Ogdensburg because I grew up here. Also because we have the OPD, we have OFD, we have, a wastewater treatment plant, we have the water treatment plant, we have a Parks and Recs department that engages our children. I think we need to look at what we get for our tax dollars and to see what is worth cutting and what is not. I know my idea of what I think should be cut and things that shouldn't be cut are different than other people that probably sit up here and other people in the community. And, I've voiced my concerns over those issues as well. As far as going to sales tax, I don't agree with how the whole sales tax and proper sales tax, went out. I think it could have been handled a little more professionally, in my opinion. I would have liked to see a little more working together of the two different entities to hopefully come up with something that could have been a little more beneficial for both sides. As far as property tax assessments, I think that as a city, we're 100% right now on our assessments, and we've talked about doing a full-fledged assessment for years now, and I believe that is something that's coming down the pipe on that. So I'll be interested to see when that happens, and we can make sure that everyone's paying their fair share. Someone's not paying too much, someone's not paying too little, and I think if we can equalize that, it'll be better for the community as a whole.
Thank you. Mr. Powers?
So the question, do you think lowering taxes will help develop our city? At this stage, I don't see that. We have a lot of building to do. The city has a great deal of potential with its natural resources. The sales tax issue is far from over. The city and much of the state and many other communities are seeing a spike in sales tax as of late, and that's generated pretty good general fund balances. Ultimately, the property tax issue, Ogdensburg is no different than many other communities within the state. Newburgh, Albany, Cortland, many other communities that have a lot of properties that are tax exempt properties. The property in the city of Ogdensburg needs to be reestablished, rebuilt. I think an investment, a true investment in the actual stick and the properties that exist now need to come about with some solid programs. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's a very sticky situation. And taxes, who wants to pay more taxes? Nobody, right? But at the end of the day, with the property taxes, we saw a 10% decrease. It was pennies on the dollar, and we're still building our coffers. And I'm a strong proponent of building upon what we have now. As far as assessments, as Nicole mentioned, we're at 100% assessment. We're discussing citywide assessments now, which would actually probably end up raising property taxes in the near future. And so there's a lot of work to be done. Ogdensburg's an indigent city, and we need to build upon what we have and not tear it down. And be able to work with county and state entities outside of the sales tax issue that we have going on. And that's not just at the county level, it's not just at the city level, but it also has to be done through home rule with the state.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Mr. Eady?
Do I think lowering taxes is going to help develop the city? Lowering taxes is going to help bring more future external entities in. Looking at future businesses coming in, lowering taxes a little bit is going to help bring those entities in. It's going to make it more appealing. It's going to help develop the city a little bit. The more we work on that, the more we're going to have business coming in. We're going to bring revenue in. We're going to lower taxes. As we're doing that, again, we're at 100% assessment right now on our city, on our properties. Is that going to help at all? No. We're going to stay about what we're saying when we're going across it. Sales tax, again, we're two separate entities. What is the problem? We can't work together to get this figured out so we're all on the same page. When we're on the same page, we're a full force going forward. When we're separated, as the thing goes, as you're divided, you're conquered. So if we can't work together and get forward on the sales taxes, your property taxes, and your assessments, we have to figure out how we're going to work to get everything together so that we're all working as a single entity instead of separate ones. I mean, again, lowering the taxes is going to help appeal to more business coming in, which is going to increase our revenue, which is going to decrease some of our tax inputs. I mean, that's about where I stand on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Eady. We're going to move on to topic number 3. This is future community goals and economic growth. Question is number 6. The question is this: how do you propose bringing business into the city? This time we'll begin with Mr. Warden.
Well, simply advertise. Let them know you're ready for business. Let them know that you will give them some sort of tax breaks. Just be job friendly. Advertise, let them know we're here. We're ready for business.
Thank you. Mr. Lesbrance?
As far as bringing businesses in, I think a lot of people have been curious about opening a business here, and there have to be incentives. I believe tax breaks are a good way of doing that, for even if it's for a limited period of time, and then they pay their just dues as well as everybody else in the city. We have a gorgeous waterfront. That's many things are coming down the pipe on that. So and people know we're here. People know Ogdensburg exists. I mean, we've been on CNN for God's sakes, you know. So if we can get businesses to come in, that'll help infuse the city and help lower. I think it'll help lower taxes for everybody. If we get other businesses coming in, you know, and creating jobs, creating economic growth, you know, people spending, not cooped up at home. Jobs. We need jobs, and we need to bring businesses in to do that. That's my take.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lesbrance. Mr. Breen?
Incentives to bring businesses into the city. We have to have something, like everybody knows we have to have something. First thing we have to have communications between City Hall and the person doing the job and help to find what we have. Not only if the city owns the property, but we got the Bridge and Port Authority that has property down there for manufacturing or for whatever they want to do. Talk to them, make sure that we're in each other's business, really, to bring jobs to the city. The other thing is, do we have people qualified enough for their jobs? Or do they have to bring people from Georgia because they're moving their plant here for whatever reason they're moving and coming here? The other thing is the trade of, is there a trade that we can send out to have those people qualified for a job that we know that's coming here? Right now, Boshi's is probably the only place that we can go and do trades, but they're only limited for some things. Bringing the college businesses here so that we have a place for people to go and learn things from the college. I mean, I remember when I came home, I went to college, but I took one of my courses at OFA. I think we need to bring that like to us, all of it, give them some place to go, the community center, any place that we can put people to learn more or learn a job, we need to do that. But will the people show up? I don't know. Hopefully they will. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Breen. Mr. Mahaffey?
Given the opportunity, if I'm elected as council, I'll definitely work with city, county, and Senator Ritchie's office, plus the old BPA leaders. There's plenty of opportunities here for us to all work together. We just need to figure out what we want and how we're going to get it up, instead of just dividing. Let's get it together. Simple.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mahaffey. Ms. Kennedy?
How do you propose businesses to get them to move into Ogdensburg? I think the most important thing that we can do is to put our best foot forward. In my opinion, the best foot forward we have are our citizens. Ogdensburg always shows up, whether it is a benefit, whether it is a fundraiser for the schools or a fundraiser for an individual, Ogdensburg shows up. And I think that's what we need to portray to businesses coming in is you want to be part of our community. You want to be part of the business that, our local kids are using for a fundraiser or hosting local nights or things like that. We do a lot of things like that in Ogdensburg. And I think that's where we can really capitalize is show the character of Ogdensburg. We are never going to be the industrial city we once were. We're just not there. We can't continue to, to look down what it used to be, 4th Street in the corner of State and see big buildings. And we're not going to see that hustle and bustle that once was when we had the, the industrial boom going on here in Ogdensburg. But one thing we still have in Ogdensburg that we had then is great people. And I think that's the best asset we can put forward. Obviously, we have a lot of things in Augsburg that can complement their business. We have the Remington, we have the library, we have a waterfront, we have, the Chamber of Commerce, which does fantastic promoting things. We have great schooling. So obviously people who are coming in and looking to do a business are also looking at our schools. What do we have to offer our students for extracurricular activities? Those are all things as a mom, if I'm going to move into a new area, that's the first thing I'm looking for. What is there to do with my kids? And second of all, or third of all, I guess now, if I keep talking is, I think, something Dan's worked on and we've worked on, my time on council has been, making the codes business friendly, making them so we can improve their signage and continue to make them visible going forward. But I've got like 5 seconds left, so I'm going to pass it on to Mike.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Mr. Powers?
Adequate marketing, strong adequate marketing for the community. Incentives. So you hear tax breaks. You hear business friendly atmosphere. Expand on the new businesses. We've got QT Laser, Cornerstone Plumbing. We've got the new arcade out at the shopping center. Taco Bell coming in. These are good economic drivers for our community and our tax base. Living wage jobs. Strong economic development through our planning department, which we have, and hopefully continues to get stronger through our brownfield opportunities to reinvest with the state of New York to get these properties cleaned up, get them back on the tax rolls. As you can see, the Diamond National property we've got proposals for the Diamond National now. With that's going to bring jobs. It's going to bring living wage jobs, contractors into the town. That's those are the things that need to happen in order to establish that, and more importantly, to look upon the river district that we all live and reside in, and enhance the opportunities to work with other riverfront communities as they hold their events, and we can correlate along with them to create a strong tourism model for the natural resources, the St. Lawrence River, the Oswegatchie, the foothills of the Adirondacks, everything that we have around us. We need to take advantage of those resources and include that in the tourism to create the economic development going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Mr. Eady?
I'm in agreement with Mr. Powers over here. We have one of the richest historical communities going on. Tourists, that's big. If we can monopolize on the historical value, the waterfronts, bringing the business in and seeing how much we're worth here, by giving the incentives to bring them here, show them a little tax break, guarantee them so much for how long they're going to be here. I mean, we have to monopolize on the waterfront. It's one of our biggest things we have working with us, is that we have one of the easiest accesses into the city. We have the whole shipping lane that we can use. So why not figure out who's going to be using that more? Who's going to bring the money into it? Who's going to bring the industry in to monopolize what we have to use the most of? Again, with tourist attractions, with the historical value, with all of the Adirondacks and everything going on. We have a perfect little spot right here for hotels, for diners. All these small places are set up, mom and pop shops, to make money here. And when we bring those in, we bring in the tax roll also. So as we bring in more business, we bring in more tax incentives, we bring in more money into our things, we increase our revenue into the city. Going back to the tax issues before, the more we increase revenue, the lower our taxes are going to be when we put more things back on the tax roll. So, and that's where I stand on that part, is we're going to go through and move forward and try to bring more businesses in for the waterfront part of this. We have to monopolize on the whole waterfront. And that's where I stand.
Thank you, Mr. Eady. Mr. Scamperly?
So I think the city, number one, we need to have perhaps an economic developer. And you look at it through many aspects. We're trying to attract manufacturing, maybe some industry, some service business, and tourism and things like that. I remember talking to the gentleman from ACO a few years ago for a manufacturing plant, and he was here to decide basically the fate of the future. And I talked about, I said, our biggest attribute for industry is we have a strong workforce. The people of the North Country have an awesome work ethic. We have 4 colleges, engineering schools, trade schools, everything right here at our fingertips. We have location. You want a highway? I know we don't have a 4-lane highway here, but right across the bridge, we got one that connects you right to the interior of the country. And so our location isn't really as bad as some people might think, being as far north. We need to just play on what we have. As far as tourism type of industry and things like that, you know, we got our river, our fisheries. I've supported events and things like that. Nicole has. I know she was on the committee. We all do. We want to bring the bass fishing here and everything else. And you know, when I was just talking to the recent developer here for Diamond National, I said, you know what's going big these days in the North Country? One thing we have a lot of is snow and snowmobiles. And I said, that Diamond property, I said, you're about a half mile from a snowmobile trail that connects you to the whole county. And he said, really? And you know, I think that he can tweak that hotel to do that. And you know, I mean, I go right down through here, the things that we've achieved and what we need to expand on, the airport, the cultural activities. NIPA has, I think it's 20 megawatts of power. So
Thank you, Mr. Scamperly. That was, okay, that's right, question number 4. All right, moving on categorically, this one is budget items and staffing levels. Question is number 3. This is the question. I have heard a couple of the candidates state that they want to work toward unity with the entire council and citizens. Exactly what will you do to assist in healing the division in the city? This time we'll start with Mr. Lesfrance.
That's ironic because my logo is fight to unite. So that's a good question for me. I think that council needs to come together as a single unit. I mean, if we have disagreements and one isn't happy about something that the other is, then work it out. Iron out the wrinkles. Figure it out to what's going to be best for the city. I know we all have our own ideas of what we want to do to make the city boom again and make it be this, you know, wonderful, happy place where taxes are low and everyone's smiling. And the only way we're going to do that is we have to come together as a single team, you know, and make the decisions. And some of them are tough. You know, you have to make tough decisions. Sometimes you have to make city job cuts, which nobody likes to hear. But if it's in the best interest of the city, doesn't mean it has to happen for a great length of time. Those positions can always be refilled. But bringing everyone together, trying to work out our differences, I think is a big step in the right direction. We need to, you know, all be on the same page. Like I said, there's going to be disagreements. Talk about the disagreements. Talk about why you don't like that idea or you don't like that proposition or whatever. Come together, unify, make everybody, you know, realize that you're doing that for the city of Ogdensburg. All the council meetings are public viewable. Watch it happen, and then watch the response the city gives back to you. They'll be behind you more than they are walking away from you. They'll back you up, and that's what the city needs to come together, not only as a whole in city council, but as a whole as a city to make it be a great city again.
Thank you, Mr. Lesfrance. Mr. Breen?
I believe working together as a whole, as a council, we've way got off the track when we had this thing with the fire department and the police department. Now, I'm not supposed to sit here and blame anybody, and I'm not going to. I just am tired of hearing 4-3. This is a council. You decided when you were running for office that you would sit here and you would listen. And if you thought you had a better idea to doing it, voice your opinion. It takes 4 votes, 5 votes, 6 votes to get stuff passed sometimes. Do I agree with everything that happens? Nope, I don't. But I do agree with the person standing at that microphone telling me about something and not just to blow him off, and that's exactly what happens, not to answer him. I have a different question for him than somebody else has, but nobody asks questions. And when he fights or directs something totally towards a city manager or something totally towards the mayor or a specific councilman, I think all of us as a council need to stay there and need to say to him one at a time, if you have to, it's wrong what you're doing, to point him out. And then when the mayor says, gotta go, you gotta go. You gotta agree with the mayor saying. We're not here to have an argument with somebody or an argument between each other. And that's what we got right now. So that is, you have to have an open mind and you just have to talk to it. And one of the best things that's been going on lately is put stuff on the table and wait till the next meeting and bring it back up, bring it again, so that everybody has a chance to get all that information that the other 1 or 2 people have to make their own mind up. You can't throw something at quickly. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Breen. Mr. Mahaffey?
Well, I'm not quite sure what kind of format we use as council members, but I've seen a few council meetings. And if I'm wrong, I could be, but I believe that the mayor has control over the meeting and presides over the meeting. So if we have like a motion on the floor, somebody needs to raise their hand. They can't just jump out of turn and then bicker back and forth. You need to be recognized. The floor needs to recognize you to make a point. So I've used that Robert's Rule of Orders for our Moose organization and through the state. And then when you make a motion, then you have what they call a discussion. And after that, then you can do a vote. You just don't go right from scratch one to whatever and then vote on it without an open discussion, but you need to do it in a proper order. Raise your hand, let the floor recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahaffey. Ms. Kennedy?
Well, I've seen firsthand that this is not as easy as it sounds. I mean, we've all sat here, we've all watched, we've all witnessed. There are a lot of different personalities and beliefs, and some beliefs are so far apart that I'm not always sure there's even a middle to be found. I honestly think that the best way to make unifying a council happen is to stop living in the past and blaming the past, bringing up the past. If you want to move forward, then you need to look ahead. Half the time when the past is brought up, I'm not even sure some of those years I was even eligible to vote yet. So, I mean, we need to genuinely look towards the future if we want to see any type of progress. As far as what I could individually do, I just say that all I can continue to do is to be a voice for the citizens, continue to share my thoughts and ideas. And, my phone's always on. I'm a text away. I'm a call away. I'm an email away. I'm accessible. And I think that, you make yourself accessible. And if someone wants to reach out, I'm always here. And that's all you can do.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Mr. Powers?
I'm a union leader. I know what unity is, and it starts as far as a meeting. I don't know. I don't even know if the question pertains to a meeting format, but at the end of the day, it starts at the chair. And when the chair throws the comment 4-3 around without anybody else coming out and the media grabs it, that pretty much sets a tone. That's just my opinion from that aspect. But at the end of the day, as far as budget items and staffing levels, at what cost? Dan mentioned it earlier. At what cost? So the people have a difference of opinion, and those opinions sometimes are met with derogatory remarks, are met with denigration, defamation, and all sorts of other forms. That to me is not true governance. That to me at the end of the day is a political platform, and it's an opinion. And at the end of the day, it's not productive for anybody in the city, and especially the workforce. We're losing employees here at the city and at our staffing levels, either through budget cuts or just for the simple fact they don't want to work here anymore. And that's a problem. And that unity doesn't just sit up here. That applies everywhere in the city. And that's where it needs to be. That's where it needs to be handled. I've sat in many forums and people are going to differ in opinion. And at the end of the day, unity comes at the end of the day. But when the vote comes down, the vote comes down. Whether we agree with it or not, we move on. And that's how it's supposed to be done. And sometimes that doesn't, because there's a difference in opinion. Before you know it, somebody else's opinion comes into the fray, and it gets derogatory. You know, ultimately, unity starts at the chair. And you know, if he wants to have that unity, then he's going to have to do that, and that comes with respect. That comes with mutual respect, and that comes with respect to the fact that people are going to have a difference of opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Mr. Eady?
Again, we were talking about it. We have to reunite everybody. The 4-3-4-3-4-3 is just a joke. Not everybody's agreeing. When we bring everybody together, we're not always going to agree. But we can at least have a discussion back and forth about what we're going to do to make it a little more tolerable instead of just 4-3. And we have to work together. Everybody has to work together. Whether it's the city of Augsburg relaying the message down to the council members so we can get the questions that we need to answer, so we can work better to help them. Because if we're not working for them, why are we sitting here? And that's the big question, is that when they have a question and they ask it towards the whole council, not just one person, it's the whole council. Everybody has the right to answer it. It isn't just shut it down, answer here, and then shut it down. Everybody has to have an equal opinion. That question that came from the audience is one question for 7 people. So as you answer the question, we unify together, and we have to figure out how to make things work. It doesn't always have to be right or wrong. It's how are we going to work as a whole council for the entire city. We quit listening, they quit talking, we quit working. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Eady. Mr. Scamperly?
So the question, as I understand it, is what can we do to get more unity in the city? And, you know, this city has a charter and it has rules to be followed. City business should be taken care of here in the city, not somewhere else. There's a clear divide in this city, and it's decisive, and it's being perpetuated. As Mike said, people are leaving this toxic environment. We have to have open minds. We have to listen to the citizenry when they stand up at the podium. Sitting here for a number of years, I thought I knew a position on an issue here and there. But you know what? Sometimes you got to be willing to change your mind when the citizens come and talk and express points of view that may not agree with what you went into it with. And I've done that, and I think everybody at the table needs to do that. We need to follow the charter. Everybody here needs to follow the same rules as the charter. They need to have access to the city attorney to be able to ask questions and get those questions responded to everybody. We need to be able to get responses to our very formidable questions right from city staff that were being denied. This all shouldn't be going to any question you have shouldn't be answered and completed through filtered one person. This is a city, we're a community. We have to think like that and act like that. And when we're sitting behind this podium, we need to represent the people and what they want. And so together as a team.
Thank you, Mr. Scamperly. Mr. Warden?
Let others be involved. Share your ideas. Be a leader. Don't act like a leader and pretend to be a leader. Be the leader. Ask questions. Be involved in other people's information and what they have to offer. Don't try to do it all yourself. There's no I in team. Be involved.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. All right, we're going to circle back now to category number 1. And this time we'll be starting with Mr. Breen. And I was helping out one of the other candidates here, so I'll wait a moment.
All right.
You're fine.
Okay.
All right. This is ethical governance and social media use. The question this time, question number 22. The question is this: transparency, follow through, honesty, and the ability to listen is key in gaining public trust. How do you plan on building and keeping public trust? And do you engage on social media to do so? This time we'll start with Mr. Breen.
Do I engage in social media for some things? Yeah, I like a lot of things on social media. I learned a lot of more things this past with the social media that we have, whether or not the city manager was wrong or right, putting stuff out there. But I didn't know certain things. That's how you find out, because everything was closed here before. Now it seems like I can find more. Now, I'm not saying that it's all true, but it gives me to inform my own opinion. And if I have a question about something going on, I am not afraid to go and talk to any one of the councilmen, talk to the mayor, talk to the city manager, go upstairs and see the people upstairs that are responsible for it, the code enforcement people, all of that. You have to be open and to go and talk to somebody that I just didn't understand it. Is there something wrong with what I'm trying to think of or whatever? The issues, because I've been watching and following political stuff in the city for probably pretty close to 16 years. It's different and it changes from people to people. We used to have rules that were followed 100% of the time. Now we don't follow the rules. When every election are, just for example, an explanation of how I'm thinking about it is, if two of us get elected November 2nd, okay, they start their bidding for our budget the first. The first one is on the first. Election's the second. Am I going to be allowed to come to the second, to the meetings and do my budget thing with everybody else, even though I don't vote on it? Nobody, to me, I should be asked by everybody to come in your knowledge come January 1st.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Breen. Mr. Mahaffey.
Yeah, we go back to that social media stuff, and I've read a lot of stuff, and I've heard from both sides, whichever both sides are, and it's actually created a divide amongst me and some of my own personal family members and friends. So I simply put out there, I said, hey, if I do win, thank you for your support. If I don't, I hope that you're still going to be my friend after the elections is over.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mahaffey. Ms. Kennedy.
I think transparency and public trust go hand in hand, in my opinion. I think the public trust in City Hall is at an all-time low. I think going forward, I think transparency is key, but how and where that information comes from is one of the most important factors into gaining that public trust. I don't think that the information, if it's going to go out to the public, should come from private social media pages. I think that if we want to have a reputable city, a reputable Facebook page, that we can put out factual information for the whole audience, not just certain groups, would be the most beneficial. We need to create a demand for that information by posting information in certain places on a regular basis. We need to almost like create a consumer. People will go there to look for the information. If we create that, then I hope that we can eliminate the use of a lot of personal social media pages to flaunt information that's not always nonpartisan, or that doesn't always promote maybe what is absolutely going on in the city. I think it's easy for anybody to skew numbers, ideas into their direction when they have a certain brand of followers that are right behind them. You know what I mean? So in order to keep the public trust, we need to have transparency, and that also starts right at the top as well. Access to our city attorney, access to all informations requested in a timely manner. Waiting days upon days for information is not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Mr. Powers.
Transparency in government is vital. There's actual laws. There's a committee for open government. There's a committee or there's laws in open government that municipalities are bound to abide by. Excuse me. In that comes transparency and ethical government. Ethical government, what's ethics? It's integrity, credibility. We're elected by the people to serve the constituents of the city of Ogdensburg. And when that gets frayed, and misinformation comes out, and ultimately name calling and other things that through the vices of social media is not progress. It's like I said earlier, it's defamation. Dan talked briefly about building upon the constituents. We've got, Nicole mentioned the people of Ogdensburg. We have a great history here. We have great people that have helped this city, and this city has seen its decline, but you have good people that are coming in and offering assistance, and it's going to the wayside, and it's being met with defamation and with derogatory comment. I can't remember the quote. I don't want to get into it, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all about credibility, ethics, and integrity. And without that in government, you're not going to have anything. I use social media to connect with family and friends. I don't use it for a research tool because it's like anything else on the web. You can get anything you want to hear on the web in any way, shape, or form, whether it be in social media, Wikipedia, whatever the case may be. But really, at the end of the day, we represent the people and the city of Ogdensburg that put us in these seats. And when they come and they voice their concerns, you better damn well listen, because they're the ones that are going to put you here. They're the ones that are going to ask you for the information. You're the one that's going to have to deliver that information.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Mr. Eady?
I believe transparency is very crucial when it comes to social media. If they're going to put information out there, it better be factual. If somebody's going to look at it, they want to know exactly what the numbers are. They want to know within margin what they're looking at. A lot of the people that are out there looking at don't know what they're looking at. So if you're putting skewed numbers out there and they're believing that's gospel. And if you're altering the numbers so that it looks better, then you're lying. And it doesn't help anybody if you're lying about the numbers. Because when you come down to your budgets have to be right on point. They have to be down to the pennies and cents. This way, when they look at it, they know exactly what they're looking for. They know what they're looking at, and they know how to understand it. Again, anyone can walk in, ask any one of us questions. I say us now, we're not even there yet. But they can ask any one of the council members, the mayor themselves, and the way that should be worked out is that they should be able to ask. They should be able to get the numbers, and they should be able to get the true numbers. And anybody on social media, something Mr. Power said, any number can be skewed. Wikipedia is an opinion. It's not even an actual factual source. So why are we not giving them exactly what they want? If they want a true Facebook page from the city council that gives factual numbers, that gives actual what's going on, everything else is BS. Why even bother putting it out there for somebody to read and think that that's fact when it's not even true? So we have to make sure that when people are getting the information, it's the right information. It's true information. It's exactly what they need to read to understand what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Eady. Mr. Scamperly?
Yeah, I don't think social media should be used to discuss politics at all. All business, as I've said before, should be taking place right here. Citizens should be allowed to come to a council meeting, to criticize their government, to ask questions. And if we don't have an answer for you now, we should be able to get you an answer. The First Amendment needs to be held accountable right here in this room. And all social media does and Facebook invites conflict, defamation, and it could happen here too. We've seen it happen here, and it's wrong. Thomas Jefferson had a quote, dissent is the highest form of patriotism. Listen to the people. That's who you're representing. You're representing the people. And if they got something to say that they're criticizing you for, well, maybe it's something you should think about. And that's true transparency, I think. Letting people talk, voice their opinion, ask questions, and be treated with respect when they come into this room. We're not their boss. They're our boss. So that's the kind of government that we need to have here in City Hall. So
Thank you, Mr. Scamperly. Mr. Warden?
Be professional at all costs. Give all facts. Explain how the whole system works. People don't understand that. Have conversations with people. Ask them questions. Give them answers. Listen to people. Listen to exactly what they have to say and what they would like. If you don't have all the answers at the time, find the answers or talk and explain what you can. the best that you can, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Mr. Lesbrunz?
Transparency, definitely a good thing. I agree with everyone and have a couple of disagreeing points. I think if the city created a way for a page for a way for the people to interact with the city, maybe once or twice a month they could ask the questions they want to have answered. There's a lot of people that can't make it to these meetings. We only have seating for so many. What if 1,000 people wanted to come here and talk about whatever they had that was bothering them? They wouldn't be able to do it. If you use social media correctly and not be abusive, like Mr. Scamperly said, or defamation. I mean, if people know that they can go there to get the answers that they're looking for because they couldn't get them from calling in or unable to get anybody, have a question and answer session, once or twice a month where people can interact with, a special meeting just for the people, if it's allowed. And if it's not, maybe create it. Give them the opportunity to reach out to you. Like I said, many can't make it here. They're homebound or elderly or have other issues that they can't get here. And again, we don't have enough seating if 1,000 people wanted to come in here right now and start asking questions, they wouldn't even fit. So I believe that, setting a special meeting once or twice a month for the citizens to be able to directly interact with the council would be a great idea and help everybody get on the same page and know what's going on in the city. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Lesbrunz. We're going to move on now to our next question. This will be categorically under sales tax, property tax, and assessments. It's question number 8. Question number 8 reads as follows. Do you think the entire city should be reassessed at the exact same time? This time we'll start with Mr. Mahaffey.
Again, I'm not a professional at taxes, so I'd have to research that. Recently, though, last year I just retired, so now I am actually a senior citizen. So I guess I qualify for the STAR program. Somebody told me that the other day. I'm like, hey, if it's there, take advantage of it. A lot of times, though, with property, because I just bought a house there a couple of years ago, and immediately I did some work on the inside, but on the outside, I kept it crappy on purpose. And a lot of people do that just because they don't want their taxes to go sky high. In that first year, without even looking at the outside stuff, my taxes went up $8,000. But before that, I couldn't get a loan from the bank. They assessed it at 10. How did it go from 10 to 23 in a matter of a year? So again, I'd have to do a lot more research on the property tax and the sales taxes. And I really don't have a lot of information on that. I will learn, though.
Thank you, Mr. Mahaffey. Ms. Kennedy?
So do I think that the whole city should be assessed at the same time? I actually think this is probably a good idea just for the simple fact that it would equalize the assessments and the means that everyone's assessed at the same time, all areas of the city. It would ensure that everyone's paying their fair share. I know that there's several places in the city that are underassessed. There's some that are overassessed based on what neighborhoods it's believed are worth more, and things like that. So I think if we look at the whole city, assess and everybody pays their fair share, that would make it a completely equitable situation. And I think as a city, it's not always about being equal. It's about being equitable, make sure it's fair for everyone in the entirety. I think if your house is assessed for $100,000 and you're going to sell it for $100,000, then, that's right on point. But if your house hasn't been assessed in, 10 years and it's assessed at 38, 40,000 and you're looking to put it on the market for 140, something doesn't line up there. So I think going forward, if we assess it all at the same time and we equalize everything, going forward, it gives the whole city a level playing field.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Mr. Powers?
In New York State, there's a couple of different facets for assessments, and I know there's a market approach, and I believe Ogdensburg pretty much operates off the market approach, right? As far as the citywide assessment, I think it would, I think it could be advantageous for us at this time. We get as a city councilman and assessments, some of the biggest complaints I get are actually over assessments, and they have to do with certain aspects of where they get assessed and how they get assessed. So we're kind of talking about it now, and it's something that needs to be looked at. But there are other aspects of assessment as well in New York State. The other approach escapes me right off the top of my head right now, but it'd be like taking a piece of property that a property that was lost in a fire that would come back, and you've got a different approach. You've got a different assessment aspect to that, because you're going to be based off some of the market prices now, whether it be construction, be hourly wages. You look at what we're dealing with now with COVID, you could see a spike in a certain aspect. So right now, I think citywide assessments would probably be a good thing for the city. Like I said, we're in discussions about it now, and I think going forward, it might be something that would be advantageous for all the residents, and would probably have to be looked at somewhere down the road as well.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Mr. Eady?
I do believe that the whole citywide reassessment would be a good idea, because as it shows the market value is coming up, as they reassess it, as the value of your home increases, it actually makes it more appealing to other people coming to buying into the city. As they're buying houses in here, they're bringing taxes back in. They're putting things back on the tax roll that probably were not, or houses that were assessed at a certain level and now reassessed at a higher one, they're paying at a higher tax rate, bringing more revenue into the city. But as you're reassessing them, people are looking at the assessments. They are looking at, okay, so 10 years ago, this was $50,000 and now it's $150,000. Now it's more marketable. People are buying it based on a market value. They're not buying it on what it was assessed 10 years ago. They're buying on what it's market now. So as you're going through and you're remarketing your house, as you're going through, you're fixing your house up and putting it at a higher standard. You're looking at people to resale, to rebuy your home. So as you're reassessing it, you're bringing in more taxes and more revenue into the city. As you're selling houses, because they're actually appealing to the outside counties, outside of the state. You get people that are buying it from outside of the country. Like China come in and bought a couple of these houses. Why? Because they were assessed low. Now, as assessments are going up, local people are actually buying them because they have equity in their homes. They have equity in their city. So they're actually going to invest in here, and they're going to keep us here because they can actually look at what their houses are worth, not today and not tomorrow, but for 10 years from now. And that's where I'm on it.
Thank you, Mr. Eady. Mr. Scamberly?
I think that we absolutely need an entire citywide reval to happen here. And the entire city needs to be reassessed at once by the same group. And we're looking at that, and I expect that to happen soon. We've been talking about that for years and wanting to do it. It's very expensive. It can't happen every year. So on an annual basis, it's just not practical unless you had a team of 6 or 8 assessors. You just can't do it with one assessor. One assessor has a difficult time doing one ward at a time or one area of the city at a time. But I think that's the way that we ought to continue to do it annually, and then maybe every 30 years, 40 years, do a citywide assessment. Because one of the big complaints that we get is some people say, this house isn't assessed properly or that one isn't. I think the assessments in the city are low. And I think if we did a citywide assessment right now while the market's good, I think people should have a more valuable house and a lower tax rate. And I think that a citywide assessment would do that. And like Rob said, it's going to give you more equity in your home. Okay. And that's what you want. You want to be able to sell your home when the time comes, but yet pay a lower tax rate. And so I think we're overdue for a citywide assessment. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Scamberly. Mr. Warden?
Yes, I think the assessment should be all done at one time, but I think it should be fair. Reason why I say this is, homes in bigger places are worth more because of the quality of life. With that being said, what does Ogdensburg have to offer to make a house worth so much more? I just would like to see it fair for what Ogdensburg is able to give it. You know, assessments, when you raise your assessment, obviously you're looking for more, to get more taxes out of it, obviously. So for me to look at Ogdensburg like Syracuse, you know, if that's how you're going to do your comparison, there's just no comparison. There's just more there to do. If you can bring more here to do, then yes, you can raise the assessments that much more. But it should be fair to your area.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Mr. Lesbrunz?
I agree that we need to have a reassessment done, but my first question is, what does something like that cost to have the entire city assessed at the same time? You would have to bring a group of people in to do it. And I wouldn't even want to have to write that check. The other thing about that is, if you have a gorgeous house in the middle of the block, and unfortunately, because of the drug epidemic here, a drug house on the corner, you know, they assess your house by other houses in the neighborhood. And I've seen it where they assess your house for the same size house on the other side of town, which I never thought was fair. To have a fair and equal assessment, I would love to see that. I think that would be a great thing for the city, and everyone would pay what their house is worth. Your tax base would be based on what your house is worth. Because that's what it's done by, if I'm not mistaken, it's so much per thousand. So if your house was assessed 2 years ago at 15,000 and now it's assessed for 45, that's quite a kick of an increase. So I don't know the last time the city even had a full citywide assessment on the city, or if it has one. That's the first time I've actually heard of it, doing a citywide assessment. Am I all for it? Yes. I'm just curious of the cost and who pays for it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Lesbrunz. Mr. Breen?
Assessment citywide, like Mr. Lesbrunz says, what's it going to cost? Really? The councilman said, Mr. Camparelli said that they've been thinking about this for years. So why hasn't it happened? Is it because someone didn't push the issue on council? Why hasn't it happened already? I know I was part of when they did the assessment in my area that I own property. I was up $18,000. I think my taxes went up. They had to pay more on. And then me being upset when I see my tax bill. So what did I do? Like I normally would do. You come down to City Hall and, you know, find out why it was. Well, the reason why it hasn't been taxed, and my taxes were never raised in 15 years. I don't keep track of all that stuff. When a bill comes in for my taxes, you usually pay it. You don't, know that until you get this big whamp of money on your taxes. My problem with, because we live in a district where a lot of retirement people are here, fixed incomes are here. If you're going to do that, why are we going to charge, I don't know, somebody over here that's on a fixed income, we're going to raise their taxes $20,000 with a whole citywide? We can't do that to somebody. We have to figure a way to make it fair. And that's what our grievances are. We have to sit there and listen. The people that are on the grievance board, I think we need, when we put them there, we need to put them there where they have an open mind on how all the assessment rules are, how they figured them all out, and ask them to tell us why there's so much difference between a $20,000 jump. Same when if I own property on the river. If I can see the river, I'm paying more taxes than the guy that can't see the river on the other side of me. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Breen. Going to move on to the next question. This is in future community goals and economic growth. It's question number 9. The question reads as follows. What 3 steps would you introduce or take to optimize our financial status? Let me read that again, I apologize. What 3 steps would you introduce or take to optimize our financial status? We will start with Ms. Kennedy on this one.
Hold on, I'm still writing the question.
Could you repeat it one more time?
I sure can. What 3 steps would you introduce or take to optimize our financial status?
I think step 1 would be to develop working relationships with those in the community we need to do business with, whether it's state, county legislators, anything in that matter. I think in order to optimize where we want to be fiscally, we need to be partners. Second of all, I think optimizing our financial status starts right in our own comptroller's office, creating a sound work environment, creating, openness, making so our citizens have the availability to interact with city staff. I know during COVID it's been tough, but whether it's being able to receive information over the phone, via email, things like that. And optimizing our financial status too needs to come from the citizens. What do they want the city spending their money on? What do they want to see here in Ogdensburg? What are they willing to forego in order to keep something else? I think as legislators, we need to really look to our citizens to find out what do they want when the tough questions come down and how do we make that happen?
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Mr. Powers?
3 steps to optimize our financial status. To piggyback, Nicole, working relationships with county government and state entities. We're reliant on a lot of grants and monies from the state to enhance the wonderful property and the wonderful city of Ogdensburg that we have, to further enhance it. And of course, obviously to have to expand the tax base, whether that be through services and or expansion of services, whether it be the water. We start to, we'll have Hewelton online here soon. Through the sewer plant, if we can optimize some other aspects of outlying communities. Development, of course, development is key to a tourism aspect for the city of Ogdensburg. You look at I mentioned earlier, the riverfront communities, working with riverfront communities to work together as they have their events and we can have our events, to bring tourism and expand revenue coming into the city, whether it be through hotels, restaurants, construction, new construction, expansion through the brownfield opportunities. And of course, obviously, at the end of the day, tourism. We have a wonderful community up here, and it can be utilized through not just the summer, spring, summer, and fall months, but even in the winter months, as Dan discussed. Ogdensburg has a quite a unique history. If you go back and you look at it, it's strong. It's vital. We were called Little Chicago for a reason. And as Nicole had mentioned, we're not going to be an industrial town. And we need to utilize the waterfront that we have and develop that waterfront and bring about solid an expansion of our tax base. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is to be able to work effectively. And I say effectively with county governments, with state governments, and other entities to get it done.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Mr. Eady?
I agree with Councilor Kennedy and Powers. We have to work with, the local state government and our county government so that we can optimize on all economic growth that we can get to come into the city. We are a little city. We're growing, but we're still a little city. Any ideas that can come in will help. Working with St. Lawrence County, working with the state, working with grants to come in to, bring more money in. So we're not trying to come up and foot the bill for X, Y, and Z. And if we work with local resources, you're working with the shipping department, the local, the border patrol and stuff like that. We're working with them. How are we going to optimize working with every aspect of this government so we can make the most of every part of it? And working with the city government, working with the city, by themselves. We can gather ideas from the city to help, because everybody's got a great idea. Whether or not we think it's a great idea or not, but everybody's got a great idea. We use their ideas, work combined with our ideas, and we can find a way to bring money in so we can start optimizing the economy in Ogdensburg.
Thank you, Mr. Eady. Mr. Scamperly?
So Ogdensburg's 2 biggest sources of revenue are property taxes and sales tax. in that order. And, you know, I think 3 steps to optimize that and those avenues. Number one, we need a friendlier code system. And we've got one, been working on it for years, one that's more business friendly. And it's, I believe, in the process of being approved and overlooked by the county right now to try and make that happen. Is it perfect? No. But is it friendlier? Yes. And it's friendlier not only to businesses, but to residents. And we can tweak it more once we get it back and actually pass it and install it. So a friendlier code system to make doing business easier is one thing. We need to attract more businesses. I think an economic developer to promote the city, to promote all seasons of the city. Like I said before, we need to have events. We need to create a sense of vibrancy in the city and do things. You know, we have things happening, but that we can build on. You know, the reenactments. Well, what else goes on during those reenactments? When I go to Canada and I go to their reenactments and things like that, they have a whole community event where businesses are welcome down there selling things. Story times at night, and during the day they have ice sculpting, all sorts of things to do those 9 months a year when we're not using the river. And I really think that we need to work more as a community to promote ourselves and create that vibrancy, and that'll increase our sales tax revenue, which is going to be big from here on out, trying to increase that sales tax. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scamperly. Mr. Warden?
Yeah, I agree with all them. We need people here. We need jobs. We need to be business friendly. Economic growth is huge. You know, the more people, the more we get on the tax roll. Obviously, tourism, great thing. Like Dan was saying, have events throughout the year, not just part of the year. I'd like to see Seaway Festival be bigger than what it has been the past couple of years. It seems like it shrank. The fireworks were great. Parade was good. But the Seaway Festival shrank. You know, could be more appealing. Invite many events as possible as you can. Lower taxes, business friendlyship. Bring them here.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Mr. Lesbrance?
Community goals are a big thing, and there's a lot that we can do as a community. One of the things I think we can do is target the youth and do things for them that they don't have. What do they have? Dogs for Boys or Girls Club. Get more events to get them involved, because a lot of parents would like to see their kids be able to go. You know, I mean, I remember when I was younger, we could go to the OFA and swim in the pool. I don't know if that's still a recreation. Bring more recreation to the younger generation, because, you know, they're our future. Let's get them happy too. I believe, like Dan said, you know, relax the codes a little bit. They're pretty strict. As you know, a guy that's been in construction all my life, there's some, and some of them are quirky. I mean, they're weird, but you got to go by the book. Well, they need to relax that a little bit. As far as doing something year round, I would love to see that happen. You know, Tupper and all the big lakes up there do ice sculptures and all that. We need to bring some of that here to Ogdensburg. The Seaway Festival, I remember when I was a kid, it was the biggest party the city ever had. There was so much to do. The parade lasted for 4 hours, not 45 minutes. I get that, you know, COVID the last couple of years has slowed everything down, but when I was younger, there were boat races, the battle of the bands. You had, you know, the parade lasted forever because there were bands from all over the country, marching bands that were part of the parade. I mean, everything has just seemed to get so far behind. We need to catch up with everybody else. I've lived outside the county. I've lived out of the state, and I've seen a lot of interesting and wonderful things out there. And you know, we always miss home when you're away from home. But when you come back here, you always wish that, you know, things could be different.
Thank you, Mr. Lesbrance. Mr. Breen?
3 steps. I think we need more than 3 steps, really. As Mr. Scamperelli said, that we have sent a code enforcement stuff over to the county already? I never even thought we voted on it. That's really what's got me on this one, because I love to read in code enforcement because I have a lot of people that ask me questions about that. And as for the city staff that we have now, they did a wonderful job. I think they need to do the same thing to our charter, identical to it. I go in there and just type in a word and it sends me where I want to go. Mr. Lesbrant said on the stuff that we have so much stuff here. We do. We have this great St. Lawrence River. What do we use it for? Fishing. That's all we use it for. I had tried to put in we got to remember, we live in a community where we have to do those kind of things in the wintertime. It all depends what Mother Nature wants to hand us. You can't have a snowmobile race on the St. Lawrence River when it's open water. You can't build ice statues if we're above 50 degrees all the time. So those are things that people have tried to do here, and we have to worry about Mother Nature on some of our things. The boat races, why did they go away? Why don't we ask some of the guys that did the boat races or race boats back then? You know, that's where our history comes in. Why don't we do it anymore? We don't have enough volunteers to do it. We don't have enough money for insurance. Well, to me, that's where we come in, being the city and us people sitting up here as city councilmen. If that's what the only problem is, that's what our money's for. Give it to them. Give them a way to go get that stuff. We wanted to have concerts in the park. Well, you got to have people that want to do that and make that money. I always wanted to do one thing, and that is have a family night in the park.
Thank you, Mr. Breen. Mr. Mahaffey?
Over the years, I've been in a lot of different events myself and volunteered for Seaway Festival. As you probably know, if you don't, my brother-in-law, my sister are like the head of that, Chris Cole and Sally. My niece, Mackenzie, she just got hired as a recreational director. And I talked to her a little bit, but she's got some really nice ideas for young people to do and build it around that. So we need to work with the younger people and have some of us older people step aside a little bit, but listen to them and support them. Give them the opportunity to bring stuff in too. Don't naysay them and just poo-poo them off to whatever reason. Yeah, lots of events we could have, as the other guys were saying. All of us up here, I think we all agree that, yeah, we could have the bass tournaments here. If we work together, we can get this done. If not, it's not going to happen for another, well, I'll be long dead and gone by then. Probably the rest of us up here probably will too. Because we've been sitting back waiting for the Augsburg cleanup and Diamond National. I was in high school and that stuff was still going on. That's 45 years ago. 45 years ago, we couldn't have figured it out by now. Or is somebody holding on to that property waiting for that big cha-ching? I mean, I don't know. Let's find out and get the stuff back on the tax rolls.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mahaffey. Moving on to category number 4. This one is budget items and staffing levels. Question number 11. Would you be willing to budget money to have the city attorney at one or both council meetings each month? We'll start off with Mr. Powers this time.
I'd budget money to have him here for every meeting, quite frankly, in the current form. All that aside, for once a month, absolutely. I don't have any problem with that at all. The city attorney, you know, there's been a lot of things in question since January of 2020, and a lot of things that you know, through opinions and certain constituents, many constituents, I might add, have had genuine concerns over some of the issues and the way this governing body has gone forward in some aspects. You know, there's been, in my opinion, multiple charter violations, administrative regulations issues. I know that the state is paying very close attention to what's happening up here right now. I know that many requests that I've had personally, and I have the emails to show it, sent to the city attorney with a response without, he wouldn't give me a response as a legislator for the city of Ogdensburg without consent from the 4-3, aspect of it all, which is quite concerning. I'd like nothing more than to have the city attorney here on a continual basis. I think it's a good question, and I strongly support the city attorney being present at city council meetings. And if they don't, at least upon request. And if a certain legislator has information that they want to have answered and a legality answered, they should, as an elected official and a legislator for the city of Ogdensburg, for their constituents, should be able to provide that answer for the citizens of Ogdensburg.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Mr. Eady?
Yes, I would also agree with Mr. Powers about having at least budgeted in for at least one meeting per month, if not at least at request. This way, if there are issues, if there are questions that need to be answered that none of us might know the answer to, he can at least chime in and say, hey, this is what the answers are. And even if he doesn't answer everybody's question, at least it puts everybody's questions at ease. And if one's addressed throughout the community, it would help clarify between the city council and the citizens of Ogdensburg exactly what they're looking at. Because if the question is directed at, let's say, the mayor, and he doesn't have all the answers, but at least the attorney would have the answers that he doesn't have for that question.
Thank you, Mr. Eady. Mr. Scamperly?
I think at this point in time, with the current situation on council and the divide, we need the city attorney to be able to answer questions, at least at one meeting. In the past, I don't think we've had to need him. He's been here and it saved us a lot of money, but that's when council actually had access. We don't have access to the city attorney, only without the consent of the majority. Many times we ask questions and they can't get answered. Under the old system, if I sent the city attorney an email and asked him a question about this or that issue in front of us, the response was usually somewhat immediate and it was to everybody. There was no secrets. First time I saw the city attorney in months, or maybe even a year. So the other night when he was here, who was this guy? Yeah, I mean, just it's so ridiculous that a sitting legislator does not have access to the city attorney. It just lots of questions, but no answers. And it's completely ridiculous. In my interpretation of the charter is that we should have access. And if we had access, we probably wouldn't need him here. We wouldn't need to budget it. And he would show when he was expected to show, just like in the past. But right now, we need the city attorney here to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scamperly. Mr. Warden?
I'd be willing to budget it if we had enough money in the budget. I'm with Rob. Once a month sounds about fair to have them on the budget. There's questions they need to be answered, or scheduling times to have them there. Not at every meeting, though.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Warden. Mr. Lesbrance?
This kind of kicks back on that transparency thing. I think if the city manager, or excuse me, the city attorney was at least one meeting, and any of the council members had questions or concerns that needed his input, that he would be available to answer that. I think they already have a budget for a city attorney anyway, don't they? So that falls under his, I'm not sure if it's by the hour or what. I'm not a council member at this point, so I don't know if they have.
By the hour.
It's by the hour.
Yep.
Well, the meetings usually last 3 or 4 hours. Is it worth it? Yes. If there's a lot of uncertainty by one or more of the council members or confusion, then it needs to be worked out. And if he's going to be the one to be able to To make that happen, then absolutely have him here. But does he have to be at every meeting? No, not if the city's paying it. No, I don't think so. But I agree that he should be at least one a month, yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lesbrance. Mr. Breen?
I believe the city attorney used to be here at every meeting, but that's when we were paying for her at 100%. Her office was, she even had an office here. But ever since, what is it, 2020, all of a sudden, all the rules about city attorney changed. And I don't know how they changed or why they got changed. I know that the 3 councilmen that we have here was all set the way that they got to see the attorney when they were on city council and had been put on city council. So I don't know how it changed. I don't know how it is the way it is today. I know that he should be here when any one of our councilmen, councilwomen need to ask him a question. I don't care if it's special meetings. I don't care if it's 3 times a month. If we need to have him here to answer a legal binding question, he needs to be here. And how do we know that if we need him here? The councilmen get ahead of everybody else to see what's on the agenda. And if they think they're going to have a question, or maybe it already's popped into their head, they need to tell the city manager, and he needs to listen to them. Because that's a really good question about what they're going to ask him. They wouldn't have it in the back of their mind if they didn't. But I think we need to set a precedent, and I think we need to go back into the charter and put it in the charter, exactly how that attorney is supposed to be used, and nobody can get away from it. And that's how I see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Breen. Mr. Mahaffey?
Yeah, again, I was like, some of the responses I've heard, my question was like going to be, how much do we pay this person? And we've already got that answer. It's hourly. Once a month, I think it'd be fantastic. As long as we give him questions ahead of time so he doesn't waste a lot of time here, we can bring him in at a certain time and say, okay, this is when we need you from 8 to 9. We don't need you to just sit here and listen to us babble on up here. And the other question I was going to ask about that is how come every year or every other 2 or 3 years, it seems like we're always changing the city attorney? I mean, a couple of gentlemen were saying I didn't even meet the city attorney before. As I recall, looking through history, it's there's like every other couple of years, there's somebody new. I mean, I guess there was a gentleman, Silver, a few years ago, and now there's Goldie. Why are they changing this? Or they just don't give a crap about the city and they move on, or is it too much for them to handle? That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Mahaffey. Ms. Kennedy?
My answer is clear cut. Yes. The reason we never needed a city attorney at previous council meetings with previous councils was the simple fact that we were never denied access to the city attorney. So if we had questions, they were readily asked and answered, in an appropriate format and time. All information was gathered and delivered to all counselors. So it made it so it wasn't necessary because our questions were being answered. And these days they're not. Our citizens deserve educated legislators. We were all duly elected to this position, and in order to do our jobs, we all need to have the correct information. Whether that information is what we want to hear, whether it's what we don't want to hear, whether it's not what we think or anything like that, we have to have all the information in front of us to make educated decisions for our city. And I don't think that based on the current situation, that is able to happen because we need 4 votes in order to even access the city attorney. I've requested multiple times and failed to garner 4 individuals that'd be willing to allow the attorney to answer my question. I've sent emails and asked for an attorney and got nothing back because there was not 4 people who would concur with me that the question was viable for the city attorney's time or money. So yes, in the long-winded version of things, And I think that if we had access to the attorney, it probably wouldn't even be needed.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. We are actually running ahead of schedule. Is anyone opposed to doing another round of questions?
Sure.
One more, right?
Go ahead.
One more round? All right, well,
Full 8.
we've already done the full 8 times 2.
Any opportunities for rebuttals?
We're going to have closing remarks at the end. So because I was told that this is the largest one in the numerics, is that not correct?
The largest one was.
Was it the ethics governments?
It was actually 33 questions were in that category and 11 in the other 3. So this is.
So based on this as the hot topic, is anyone adverse to us choosing this, or would you prefer something else?
I have a suggestion too. We all have a number instead of maybe if we can't get a full 8, if we all hand in our numbers, you can draw the person that goes first and we just.
I was going to ask to do that
Go
actually.
in that order instead of in case we don't get through a full 8 before our time is up, at least everyone will have the same opportunity.
Yes, I was going to do that for numerics for randomizing.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yep.
Yep. Just in case we don't.
But is
get
anyone
through a full
adverse to this being the topic we choose from based on the citizens?
No.
Nope.
That's fine.
All right. I'll have Joe collect those. While he collects those, I will draw out the number.
Hot topic. Jump right off there.
All right, the question is going to be number 25.
I like the amendment.
Number
I'll
25.
use my teacher voice.
Mhm. Yes.
Ethical government.
This is ethical governance and social media use. Ethical governance and social media use. Question number 25. We are starting with number 5. I believe that is Mr. Breen. All right, Mr. Breen, we're going to start with you. Question number 25.
Yep.
Transparency, follow through, honesty, and the ability to listen is key in garnishing public trust. How do you plan on building and keeping that public trust? What background experience or level of public trust do you possess that makes you qualified for this council position?
Well, yeah, very good.
Could you do that one again?
I can. I warned you some of these were heavy. I didn't see them, but I saw his eyes when he said he had to type them.
Trying to write it down.
Transparency,
Yep.
follow through, honesty, and the ability to listen is key in gaining public trust. How do you plan on building and keeping public trust? And what background, experience, or level of public trust do you possess that makes you qualified for a council position?
Public trust. Okay. Well, the transparency that we have to have is everybody, all of us, not just me. The whole council, the city staff, all of us. The follow through, you have to want to follow through what's on your mind, what you want. If a gentleman asks a question in here that you totally don't understand, you just write it down and try. You have to build your own follow through system because my system might not work for you. Might not work for a lot of people. What do I have to put forward for me to know how to do this? Well, being an ex-military person, I have been awarded numerous amount of awards for following through, keeping track of thousands and thousands of jobs, people working underneath of me. 17 is the most that I ever had. But you have to be able to have an open communication no matter what it is. And you have to be able to make the big decision on whether or not how many it's going to affect. I mean, I just try to figure out, once you know all the information, it's easier for you to make a decision. To know it, like we've been talking about pretty much all night long. It's always been the same thing. Trust in each other, have faith in each other, and just move forward. And you'll know whether you can trust them or you can't trust them. Well, I would say within the first year of them sitting here. And that's what I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Breen. Mr. Mahaffey?
Over my experience here in Augsburg, I've definitely worked. I mean, anybody that really knows who I am, I have seen me out somewhere playing a band for definitely like a lot of organizations VFW, Elks, Moose, KFC, Kiwanis. I coached Little League for soccer for like 10 plus years. I work with a lot of the organizations doing fundraisers, jamborees to raise money for people whose houses have been destroyed a little bit. Somebody is dying of cancer, their family needs some money. So I work with a lot of different organizations, and I think I have leadership quality in that aspect. And I think that will come actually here because I can listen real well and make a determination of what's best for all of us, not just, oh, I'm just going to shut up on that part. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahaffey. Ms. Kennedy?
What makes me qualified for this position? I think one of the first thing I learned is that we need to listen first and listen often. If we stop talking and listen, we can find out what people are truly trying to say, whether it's with their voice, with their body language, with their actions. I've learned that listening first and often can genuinely garner me more respect than just spewing my opinion all over the place first. If you listen, you can usually find a common ground with someone. We need to be available. Transparency comes with being available, whether it's in the grocery store, whether it's at the sports field, whether you're loading your groceries. I've had people stop me just about everywhere, and you make time. If it's not then and there, you set up a time. I think that I offer a voice, a different perspective. I bring a different point of view. I come from more of a mothering, nurturing line where I tend to gravitate towards a lot of issues that involve our youth, and I also offer some stability, and I think that that's important right now is stability. I also think that I have an open mind, and I personally believe that I can make decisions unbiased. I've sat here at a council meeting, came in ready to vote a certain way, listened to what the citizens had to say on the podium, and completely changed my mind based on the needs of the time. I think that, other than city and council, I offer a lot to the community. I sit on various boards and committees. I coach aspiring athletes here. You never know who's going to come out of Ogdensburg. I mean, we've had some great athletes come out of Ogdensburg. So whether I'm elected or not, I will still be doing all of those things and raising my family here. So you won't be able to get rid of me that easy.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Mr. Powers?
Transparency and follow through. I mean, let's face it, Ogdensburg's a pretty small town. Everybody knows everybody here, right? I am what I am. I don't, I'm not going to BS anybody. And if I don't have the information, I'll get it. But transparency is key. And I'm not going to compromise my credibility or integrity for anybody, for that matter, especially in a position of as a legislator for the city of Ogdensburg. I've served previously on the city council from 08 to 2012. I didn't rerun for personal reasons and for family reasons. I said I'm community minded. I'm very community minded. I grew up in this great city, played in its parks, played baseball in the parks, played football in all the organizations, baseball and basketball. There's great community development here in the city of Ogdensburg, contrary to some articles that you may see in some of the newspapers created by certain individuals in city government. But all that aside, Ogdensburg has a whole lot to offer. I recognize that, and I want to help progress that going forward. My qualifications, to serve as an elected official, I'm a 3-term president of the largest law enforcement state-operated union in the state of New York. I'm the only one to ever be elected to multiple terms. I have great relationships with many state entities. The comptroller recognizes my work. I serve on the Retirement Advisory Committee for the state of New York for the state comptroller. Regardless of party affiliations, I've worked on both sides of the aisle in multiple facets to get many things done for the not only my membership, but even some of the very recently a lot of work behind the scenes trying to get certain things done, such as home rule for the city of Ogdensburg. I have great relationships with everybody, and my reputation speaks for itself.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Mr. Eady?
Transparency is also very important to me. You've got to make yourself available, answer the questions, follow through. I want to be able to take the questions from everybody if I can answer them. if I can't. I have to find the right answers. The follow-up is the key part of the whole transparency thing. You have to be able to answer the questions. You have to be able to make the follow-up. You have to be able to satisfy the questions that are at hand. If you're not going to be willing to step out, ask the questions, make yourself accessible, make yourself able to know what's going on with your community, then again, why are we here? We're here, we're working for the community. We're not working for ourselves. Petty differences between the committee is not helping anybody. They're the ones that are supposed to be here for us. We're here for them. So the transparency part of it, yes, we have to be able to be on call any time of the day, night, messaging, email, whatever, so they can get a hold of us. As far as what do I have for experience? I'm still learning. I mean, I'm still new into politics. I'm learning new ways. I'm not biased in one way or the other. I want to know how to help, how to make things better, grow with the rest of the council, grow with the rest of the community. I'm still learning with you guys. So I need to be able to work with everybody to help me learn, to help everybody else.
Thank you, Mr. Eady. Mr. Scamperly.
So I believe the question is transparency and what will I do in experience? Open door. I think I've been sitting here for quite a while, and everybody in this community who wants to talk to me, I have an open door. They message me, they call me. I can't get through a grocery store to go buy a bag of dog food without spending an hour talking to people. And you know what? And I'm not picky. Today I was in Walmart doing just that, and a gentleman stopped me that hammers me every day on this Facebook page, and I stopped and had a half an hour conversation with him, and he appreciated it. And so I have an open door policy always. I listen to people, I participate, I try to keep an open mind on things, and see where they're coming from. And I almost always bring things right to the floor, unless I forget innocently. But other than that, if somebody wants me to bring something to the table, I try and bring it to the table. And my history speaks for itself on that. I'm an active member in this community, probably so many clubs. And so, you know, I get around, people see me, talk to me, ask me any questions. And here I am. Like Mike said, it's a small community. I like to support the community and what they want for this city. You know, all the different clubs and various organizations. We can do so much more when we work together. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scamperly. Mr. Warden.
Yeah. Speak to everyone. Like Dan said, an open door policy. You know, no matter what someone has to say, at least listen to them. Don't ignore them. Don't delete them. Always be positive. Talk to everyone as if they were equal to you, not below you. You know, I work at a lot of people's houses. People trust me. People ask specifically for me to come back. They know I'll always do a good job and try the best that I can do to fix whatever I got to fix, or whatever I'm into, I'll do the best that I can. That's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Mr. Lesbrance.
Being there for the city residents is a big thing. And if any of them want my phone number, I'm glad to give it to them once elected, and they can call me and voice their concerns, just like they can with any other city council member. Being there for them is what the job entails. You also have to make decisions, some tough, some not so tough. And you know, you're going to get a lot of feedback. Some of it's going to be negative, and hopefully a lot of it's positive. Being on the team that helps the city finally bounce back and become a great city again is something that needs to happen. And, you know, I'll be able to answer anything that I can. I'm fresh into politics myself. I'm not a politician, but, you know, every politician started somewhere. This is a good stepping stone. And I think that being here for the people is what they need to hear and what they need to have happen. Those aren't just words. If elected, you'll have my phone number. I'll rent a billboard space on 37 and put my number out there if I have to. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Lesbrance. We have enough time left to do 2-minute closing remarks and rebuttals for all candidates. I'm going to start at the beginning of the line. I'll give you a few seconds, Mr. Eady, to get yourself together before we start the clock. Can we do 30 seconds, Kathy? At that time, we'll start and you'll have your 2 minutes to do closing remarks or rebut any other questions or thoughts that occurred earlier in this evening. Your time starts in that 30. No? No. A second or 30 seconds, Kathy?
My name is.
He says he's ready. She's not still. So she needs 30 seconds.
Okay.
All right.
In closing, like I was just saying, I'm new to politics. I'm new to city politics. I want to grow with everybody here. I'm not biased. I'm not part of the groups or whatever everybody wants to think. I want to be here to help as many people as I can. And again, I want to learn with everybody here. I have no enemies to sit on this council at all. I want to learn. Everybody has their own input. Everybody has their own opinion. Everybody has their own education level as far as city politics. Everything I can obtain, learn, will help me grow. Am I perfect? No. Do I want to be? No. But I still want to learn from everybody here. Like Mr. Powers has been here a long time. He knows a lot about unions and stuff like that. I don't. I love to learn from that. Ms. Kennedy, she's also been on politics for a long time. I would also like to inputs. I need to learn. I need to know. I can only get better. I have to start somewhere. And I have no rebuttals. Everybody has valid points. So that's good. I would just like to learn, to grow, to help, and that's where I need to be at. As soon as I can establish where a common ground is to learn, I'll be in a better place. I'm all set.
Thank you, Mr. Eady. Mr. Scamperly?
I've been on this council for quite a while. Got a lot of experience, a lot of information, and I've got a lot of time and dedication into this city. When I first got on council, the brown fields were brown still, and we got them cleaned up. It took a long time. Government works at a snail's pace. We established a plan for the city. An LWRP. We've designated areas to the city for vibrancy, and we're watching these fruits develop right now. Our marina district with restaurants and taverns and things are growing. It doesn't happen overnight, but I've watched it happen during my time here, and I want to continue. One of the biggest projects I want to see and follow through with is the Diamond property. And I want to continue to get the Augsburg property cleaned up. I want the Newell building cleaned up. I want to see the airport expand. All the things that we've got that I've so far had a hand in trying to create a better Ogdensburg. I want to see it expand more. And so I hope people see my passion for Ogdensburg. Sometimes I'm a little too passionate, but I'm very passionate about the city of Ogdensburg and want to see it develop. So, and I've had a hand in it so far, and I want to see the rewards. I want to reap what we've sown. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scamperly. Mr. Warden?
I love Ogdensburg. I want to see it grow. I'd like my chance to learn and be a part of my community more than I have been. I'd like to see the dam be what it once was. I'd like to see the riverfront be what it could be. I remember having the monster truck show here. The Seaway Festival was big when I was a kid. I just want it to be back to at least what I remember. The boardwalk was there. Just the way everything is at the moment, I just would like to see it bigger and more and better, and I would like to be a part of that.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Mr. Lesperance?
I believe all of us sitting up here want to see the city grow, see it infused with businesses and help with taxes, development, businesses. And I'd like to be a part of that. I'd like to be one of the decision makers, one of the people that gives his input or his, disapproval if there's something to disapprove of. I want to be a voice for the people, and I want to be there for the people of the city of Ogdensburg. And I want to be part of the reason that we make Ogdensburg great again, period. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Lesbrance. Mr. Breen?
Like Mr. Lesbron says, I'm here for a specific reason. I was born and raised here, left for 20 years, came back home. And deformation of character in the last 2.5 years has been wild here. I said, I had people, and I told all the councilmen and the mayor that, how did I ever get put in Mike Skelly's pocket? I have no idea who started it, but I sure would like to know. Because if he's listening right now, he can call me, he can stop by my home, and I want to know how come you started that rumor. Okay? I know everybody here. Okay? Never met Mr. Eddie till a while back. Couldn't figure out who he was by the way his name was, really. You know, you always got names for everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Like my dad.
No.
Done it my whole life.
We get along, that's okay, but we all can get along. We all have the same thing. We want our city, hometown, whatever you want to call it, to be better than what we're doing right now. We need to stop what we're doing. If it takes hometown meetings, it takes hometown meetings. Have them. I don't understand. Anyway, how come we can't? You know, I got 3 councilmen running for their seats again, and I don't think it should take 4 votes for a lawyer. I don't think it should take anything for a lawyer. I think asking, number 1. Number 2, I do think that we need to get along a lot more than what we are as a whole, citywide. I don't agree with a lot of things I see. And my biggest thing is the drug problem we have in the city. We need, as a council, to step up and hammer, put it down. Whether or not the 7 of us got to take a drive in a car or something and go down and jump on the governor's desk to make her change that get out of jail free card.
Thank you, Mr. Breen. Mr. Mahaffey?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you. I applaud you for doing this. I respect each and every one of you, ladies, gentlemen. I'm glad you're here. This is a great debate. And no matter who wins, I will still support Ogdensburg. As my old boss, Chuck Kelly, used to say, when I worked for him, there was many times I'd come into work late or something like, well, not that many, but but you knew where you stood when you were working with this man. So working together as a community, if you worked with Chuck Kelly, you knew where you stood. You could see, he'd still let you flap off of the jaws here and there, and he would listen to you. But he would not put up with this nonsense if he was here, and God bless you. Yeah, I've talked to a few people in the last few weeks, and they agree. Chuck Kelly, if he was here, you'd be looking at him, and I guarantee you, he would not put up to the nonsense. Just moving forward to the greater good of the Ogdensburg. Thank you for having me here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mahaffey. Ms. Kennedy?
I think actions speak louder than words. I've shown Ogdensburg what I can bring to the table. I've been a voice for the citizens, and I've taken my lashings because of it, and I still show up every week. I still am an active member of our community, despite, rhetoric on Facebook and things like that. I've actually had individuals who were very critical of me at the beginning of my term over some issues that were going on that, and then had them turn around sometime later, and whether I've seen them in the grocery store, or they've called me to let me know that, I've really earned their respect. And I think that's the highest form of a compliment, when someone who was openly critical of you before in an open forum at a council meeting can come up and let you know that based on the characteristics that you've exhibited and your fundamentals, that you've earned their respect. That was the highest form of compliment I've received since I've been sitting on this council. And, I still carry that with me every day. As a mom, I think I look for various things in a community than my male counterparts do. Raising a family, I have 3 little kids, all varying ages. And I think I look for different things in a community when I look out my window. I think having my voice on this council makes it a little more well-rounded, a little more stable, and it shows that whether you're male, whether you're female, you deserve respect. And if you give that respect, you should also receive that respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Mr. Powers?
Thank you. I just want to start off and applaud everybody up here for getting involved, more importantly, and wanting to throw your name into this race and serve your community. It's contrary to popular belief, it's not a popular position. So with that being said, I was born and raised here. I lived here all but 10 years of my life. I raised a family here and co-parented a family here with my ex-wife, and I'm proud to say that we've raised 4 great kids in a community. My position is really kind of clear, and I've made this known in many facets. We're the city of Ogdensburg. We're the largest city. We're the only city, I apologize, the only city in the largest county in the state of New York. I'm not one to farm out our work. I'm not one to create bad morale over budget cuts and call it progress. I'm not one that's going to support that. I'm a strong proponent of building on what you have. And that's the only way for true progress, by simply tourism, expanding the tax base, and many of the very topics that all 8 of us up here spoke about today. I'm a strong proponent of Ogdensburg. I'm not in favor of defamation of the city of Ogdensburg through media outlets, whether it be through Fire and Safety or CNN or Gannett newspapers, and downtrod this area. We have a drug problem. We're no different than any other community in the nation. But going forward, I surely won't support any aspect of cuts that compromise the services for the city of Ogdensburg. I want a stronger, better workforce. I want a workforce that has morale, that wants to come to work. I don't want to see people walking out of this building that we're sitting in at the moment that don't want to work here anymore. I won't support that. We have great community here. We have great clubs, the Boys and Girls Clubs, houses of worship, school district. We got the natural resources to expand on.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our program this evening. I want to thank you very much, everyone. I think it's been a wonderful dialogue. I applaud your passion, your commitment, your desire to be part of this, and I thank you for letting me host this. Thank you to Mr. Sylvie for putting it together. It was a bit of a thankless job. Thank you to Brittany and Kathy for the behind-the-scenes work as well. We look forward to seeing what happens at the polls and interacting with you and working with you in the city of Ogdensburg in the future, no matter what happens on Tuesday. Thank you very much. Have a safe weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Go. Really?